Play Yahtzee, scorecards and rules. Check out these Yahtzee instructions. The Yahtzee dice game is a great game of chance, but also of smart thinking and planning ahead. Yahtzee is very easy to learn, and can be played by almost anyone of any age. In order to play this game, you will need a set of dice, and a copy of the different value sheets. Here's how to get started. To begin the game, read the instructions. Determine your turn order, and let the first person roll the dice. After each turn, pass your dice along to the next person in a clockwise rotation. Remember that play only lasts for 13 rounds before the game ends and scores are tallied. During your turn, you must roll all 5 dice. Based on what appears, you have multiple options and ways to score points. You are allowed to make up to 3 rolls in a single turn. When you decide to make another roll, you can roll whatever dice you want. It could be 1 or all 5. Remember that if you choose not to roll a die, it stays as is, and when you've used all 3 rolls in a turn, the dice values remaining are final. In order to assign the scores, you have to decide which pot to add your score to. Each pot has a different way of adding the dice. For example, SIXS means you get 6 points for every 6. All of Yahtzee's other special pot values give you the amount of dice that you rolled, as long as the condition is met. The only pot that is not calculated by adding the dice involved is Yahtzee, which is 5 of a kind and is always worth 50 points. The game's scorecards are divided into upper and lower point values. The upper column on the scorecard features all of these number values. Points for each pot are determined by how many of that particular number you received and are multiplied by that value. So 3 ones would give you a score of 3. 3 SIXS would work out to 18 points, 6x3. If a player manages to score 63 points or higher on the upper scorecard, she will receive a bonus of 35 points. The bottom portion of the scorecard is played as the different pots indicate. In order to score any points, you must complete the requirement. 3 of a kind may be scored only if the dice show 3 of a kind. 4 of a kind means you must have rolled 4 of the same number. A full house means a 3 of a kind and a separate pair. Straights are sequences of consecutive numbers, small straights being 4 numbers and large straights being 5. The chance box lets you score when you have a mishmash of numbers, and Yahtzee. The hardest box to get is 5 of a kind. The skill of Yahtzee, however, is that players must pick a column to just add 0 points if they cannot get points from anything during a roll. For example, if you rolled 3 ones, but the only pot you hadn't used yet was 4 of a kind, you would have to accept 0 for the pot. All pots can only be used once, and since the game runs for 13 rounds they must all be used. It is very important in the game to be constantly thinking ahead. You can score big points for some of the more difficult pots, so it is advantageous to leave things like your ones column until the very end when it is worthless. It is important to not leave yourself in a position that makes you have 0 points for multiple pots. Target the more difficult pots early on to win at Yahtzee. Leave pots like 1s and 2s, which can never be worth many points, until the very end. This will ensure that if you do have to add a 0 to a pot, it is not one that could potentially have been worth many points. If you roll 4 sixs, go straight for 4 of a kind before you go for sixs. Your number pots in Yahtzee should be the last ones you use. Once all 13 rounds have been played, each player must tally the value she has added to each individual pot, and compare her total to every other player. The person with the highest score wins the game. Rolling 5 of a kind is hard but exciting. Be sure to scream out Yahtzee if you are lucky enough to do so. Here is a complete list of the scoring options for the varying pots in Yahtzee. 1s. Add up all the 1s. 2s. Add up all the 2s. 3s. Add up all the 3s. 4s. Add up all the 4s. 5s. Add up all the 5s. Sixs. Add up all the 6s. 3 of a kind. Reward 20 if there are 3 dice of the same value. 4 of a kind. Reward 35 if there are 4 dice of the same value. Full house. Reward 25 if there are 3 of a kind and 2 of a kind. Small straight. Reward 30 if there are 4 in a row. Large straight. Reward 40 if there are 5 in a row. Yahtzee. Reward 50 if all dice are of the same value. Chance. Add up all values. Remember these simple tips that will put you directly on the fast track to winning. Go for your high point totals very early in the game. Things like getting 5 ones would obviously be better spent on a Yahtzee than on having that many ones. You'd also be better off using this as a 4 or even 3 of a kind. It can be advantageous to take 4 of a kind in your upper half of your score deck if you roll 4s, 5s, or sixs, because of the bonus you receive in the upper half if you score over 63 points. Go for your long straight if you roll a short straight right off the bat, leaving 1 or 6 open. Your chances of rolling a 1 or 6 in your following 2 rolls are very high. Go for Yahtzees, but make sure you have the corresponding upper half pot left to still fall back on. Nothing would be worse than rolling 4 ones when you've already used your ones and your 4 of a kind. Finally, the best pot on the board is your chance. Hold onto it until the very last moment possible, because somewhere along the line you'll get a bad roll, and will need to put it somewhere that doesn't leave you completely broke. Required tools: 2 or more players, 5 dice. Caution: don't leave yourself in a position where you left the hardest pots for last. This almost guarantees you will be filling your scorecard with many zeros. Quick tips: leave your numerical pots until the end, as these are the easiest to fill and especially for the lower denominations not worth much. Your chance pot is a freebie. Fill this up if you find yourself with a mishmash of high numbers, 2 sixes, 2 fives, a 4. Useful links: Yahtzee.